Every crypto bull run has one thing in common: Altseason. It's when altcoins explode, delivering 10x, 50x, or even 100x returns. In 2017 and 2021, we witnessed life-changing wealth created during Altseason. But the majority of people missed out because they didn't understand how money flows through Bitcoin, Ethereum, and altcoins. In this video, I'm going to break down the exact blueprint of the crypto money flow cycle. I'm gonna talk about why it happens and how you can position yourself to catch that next big wave before it even happens. So stay tuned as I break down each phase of the money cycle, highlight the signals that you need to watch for, and provide you with actionable steps so that you can capitalize when Altseason finally kicks off. So during the 2016 and 17 halving cycle, I started with just $1,000 in crypto. But by the end of the bull run, my portfolio had skyrocketed over $50,000. It was a crazy ride. I literally couldn't lose a trade. Altcoins were pumping like never before, and I thought that I had found a secret infinite money glitch. Well, turns out I didn't. I round tripped a lot of those profits because guess what? I didn't know when to sell. I thought prices would just keep going up forever. Spoiler alert, they didn't. I ended up losing a ton of my profits when the market eventually did crash because I had no exit strategy. But that's a story that we'll get into later on in the video when we talk about when to sell, because trust me, I learned a very, very expensive lesson during my first Bitcoin halving cycle. So you won't want to miss that part unless, of course, you also want to learn the hard way the same way that I did. So what is Altseason? In simple terms, Altseason is when altcoins, aka alternative cryptocurrencies, significantly outperform Bitcoin. During these periods, the crypto market kicks into high gear as smaller projects become the main focus, triggering massive price increases, higher trading volumes, and intense market activity. While the potential for huge gains during Altseason is very enticing, it also comes with very high risk. The same volatility that can multiply your wealth overnight can also devastate your investments if you don't know what you're doing. Success requires a carefully planned strategy. Historical data reveals the Altseason's remarkable power. During the 2017-2018 cycle, Bitcoin's dominance dropped from as high as 98% to as low as 35% during that time. That's almost a 64% decline in market share. This shift propelled many altcoins to gains exceeding 1,000% returns. The 2020-2021 Altseason followed a similar pattern. Bitcoin's dominance fell from about 71% down to about 38%, while the altcoin's market cap went from around $250 billion to over $1.59 trillion. This era saw the insane rise of meme coins like Dogecoin, who went up over 11,000% alongside an NFT boom. These altcoins have produced remarkable success stories. You can literally make life-changing returns during this time. These are not outliers. These are just part of the cycle. That's why it's so important for you not only to understand the crypto money flow cycle, but to be able to spot when the next Altseason is approaching. We're gonna cover a few different indicators that you can watch to make sure that you're on top of these things, like that altcoin index indicator, a Bitcoin dominance threshold you should be aware of, and how Ethereum alone could be a clear indicator for Altseason. But before we get into all that, you need to understand how money moves in crypto, because that's what causes all of these dramatic price swings. If you don't understand this, then you will be late to the party and miss out on life-changing returns. This is called the crypto money flow cycle. What if I told you that billions of dollars in crypto follow a predictable path like clockwork? It might sound too simple to be true, but there's a method to the madness of Altseason. Let's dive into the surprisingly straightforward way capital rotates through crypto. So capital rotation in crypto is a process where money moves from one asset to another in search of better opportunities. In the crypto world, this typically means funds shifting from Bitcoin into other altcoins during specific market cycles. Here's where it gets interesting. If you've ever seen Bitcoin going up while your favorite altcoins are going down, there's a reason for this. It's not just random. Let's take a look at this chart here. On the left side, we have BTC dominance. In the middle, we have BTC price. And on the right side, we have altcoins. So if you've ever seen the scenario where Bitcoin's price is going up, but your altcoins are going down, it's because Bitcoin's dominance is also going up. So let's think about it logically, right? If Bitcoin dominance is going up, that means it's taking a larger share of the overall crypto market cap. So that means that the money that's currently coming into crypto is coming into Bitcoin. And if the majority of money is flowing into Bitcoin, then that means that money is typically going away from altcoins. And usually when Bitcoin dominance is decreasing, it's bullish for altcoins. Because if you think about it logically, if dominance is decreasing for Bitcoin, that means that money is flowing out of Bitcoin into altcoins. That's the only reason why Bitcoin dominance would ever decrease. So if Bitcoin dominance is decreasing and Bitcoin's price is increasing, that typically signals Altseason. This means that money is flowing into altcoins way more than it's flowing into Bitcoin. And as Bitcoin's price goes up, people are taking profits and throwing them into altcoins, looking for new and better opportunities. So now let's understand the crypto money flow cycle. So first, all money begins here, right? Fiat. Whether it's USD, euros, doesn't matter what it is fiat. From fiat, the money goes into Bitcoin. This is the first phase of the money flow cycle. The typical investor is going to hear about Bitcoin and buy Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the most stable cryptocurrency, so it's going to attract the most money. Now, as the price of Bitcoin goes up, people begin to take profits, right? As people begin to take profits, it typically unlocks phase 2. People are now taking their profits and rotating them into altcoins. They're in search of better opportunities and higher returns. Because they're in profit, now they're willing to gamble a little bit more and take a little more risk for higher returns. And this begins at the top, right? Ethereum, BNB, Solana, XRP, Cardano. That is where phase 2 begins of the money flow cycle. Soon after phase 2 comes phase 3. This is when the money flows from large caps to mid caps. So this could be anything outside the top 15, top 20, top 25 coins. This entire range here, I would consider mid caps. Because once again, people are taking profits from the large caps, they're getting a little bit more confidence, and they're in search of better opportunities, higher returns. They're willing to gamble a little bit more. They're willing to take on more risk, and that's when money flows into the small caps. Small caps is probably going to be anything below $3 billion at this point in time, I think. Sounds crazy, but that's probably where we're at right now. So I would say 3 billion, probably to about $1 billion, probably to the end of the top 100 cryptos would be considered small caps. And I know in this graph it says that after small caps, it goes back to phase 1 to Bitcoin, but there's actually a phase 5. And I would say that phase 5 is micro caps. Micro caps are gonna be pretty much projects under $1 billion. You're gonna see most of the times the coins that are trending are micro caps because they're gonna give you moves like this where it went up 200% in the last 7 days, 400% in the last 30 days. But this also has a market cap of only $100 million. After phase 5 is usually when money starts returning into Bitcoin or into fiat, as people either take their profits and put it back into something more stable like Bitcoin, or they just altogether cash out of crypto. And eventually we start the cycle all over again where people take that money again, that fiat, and they begin with phase 1 Bitcoin, and this is the money flow cycle. It just does it over and over and over. Here's another cool graphic explaining this exact same thing. Phase 1, money flows into Bitcoin. Between phase 1 and phase 2, money flows into Ethereum, but Ethereum struggles to keep up with Bitcoin. Phase 2, Ethereum is outperforming Bitcoin, and money starts to trickle into larger caps where we see large buy-ups happening. Which brings us to phase 3, large caps. At this point, Ethereum has been outperforming Bitcoin and large caps are going parabolic. And then phase 4 is Altseason. Large caps have gone full vertical and we're seeing blow off tops. Mid caps, low caps, micro caps all tend to pump around the same time. Large caps have been outperforming Bitcoin and Ethereum. It seems like every coin is going parabolic regardless of fundamentals, and memes are everywhere. Everyone is super excited and you feel the mania in the air. So by now you should have a good understanding on how not only the crypto money flow cycle works, but how Bitcoin dominance impacts that cycle as well. And here's the exciting part. We're already seeing early signs of rotation in on-chain metrics. The altcoin index is currently at a 67. When this gets to about a 75, it's a sign that either we're in alt season or it's very close. 67 simply means that about 67% of altcoins are currently outperforming Bitcoin. This only tracks the top 50 altcoins, not all those, random ones. Another thing is Bitcoin's dominance has began to drop. You can see that we peaked here at about 61% just last month, and we're currently sitting at 56.58%. However, Bitcoin is still outperforming Ethereum, as you can see in this chart. So although we're getting close, we're not quite there yet. But these are the under the radar signal that the smart investors watch for. Now you might be wondering how this all has played out in previous bull runs. And you probably know how much I love to break down historical data. So let's break down how the money flow cycle has performed in the past and how these key indicators behaved during that time. So to truly understand where we're heading, we need to look back at where we've been. The alt seasons of 2017 and 2021 hold valuable clues for predicting the next big wave. In both cases, Bitcoin's price action and dominance played a crucial role in signaling the start of alt season. So let's break it down. In 2017, Bitcoin reached an all-time high of around $20,000 in December. This triggered a massive altcoin rally with coins like Ethereum, Litecoin, and Ripple seeing incredible gains. You can clearly see here how Bitcoin's dominance began to fall right after it peaked. So that was around December 11th. Look at what happened December 11th in total market cap excluding Bitcoin here. This is a total too. A massive 81% move up during this week. That's insane. And that rally continued all the way until about January of 2018, where it ended up peaking, and then we welcomed the bear market. If we also look at Ethereum during the same exact time, on the week where we had this big red candle for Bitcoin's dominance, we had a 52% move up for Ethereum. Pretty much in the next month, it went up about 200%. So that simply means that money was flowing out of Bitcoin and into Ethereum and other altcoins during this time after Bitcoin had peaked at $20,000. Everyone began taking their profits. You can see it here in the price of Bitcoin as Bitcoin was going down. Ethereum and all altcoins for that matter were going up. People were taking profits, boom, putting them into Ethereum and other altcoins. Perfect representation of the crypto money flow cycle. And if we look at 2017, we see the same exact thing. As Bitcoin's dominance was going up, you can see that Bitcoin was outperforming the altcoin market. And then right around here on the 28th of December 2020, Bitcoin's dominance peaked right on this yellow line. After the peak, Bitcoin's price only went up another 109%, while the overall altcoin market went up over 515% during that same period of time. So if you would have been in altcoins instead of Bitcoin during this time, you would have outperformed Bitcoin at a rate of 5-to-1. Look at the relation between Bitcoin dominance, as that drops, this just goes up, up, and up. This literally goes parabolic. Before Bitcoin's dominance peaks, you can see that it's still going up somewhat, but it's not in a parabolic state like this, right? So that's why this here is called alt season, while this is just, altcoins are gonna eventually go up during the bull run. But that parabolic phase known as alt season is once Bitcoin's dominance peaks. So during the 2020-2021 cycle, Bitcoin's dominance peaked in December of 2020. So December, the year of the halving. 2017 was a little bit weird because remember, this was known as the ICO boom, right? This is known as the time when altcoins really started coming into the market. Before then, Bitcoin's dominance was always over 90%. Altcoins weren't really a thing yet. So it's hard to gauge using the 2016-2017 dominance in order to kind of figure it out. But what we can see is that this 70% mark here, once it fell below that, that kind of signaled the alt season, so to speak. we can see if we line them up here perfectly together, this is the altcoins, this is Bitcoin's dominance. That's pretty much when altcoins went parabolic during that time. So I think 2020, 2021 is gonna be a more reliable chart and historical data, because at that point altcoins were already around. And you can see after the Bitcoin halving, which is this blue line here, Bitcoin outperformed the altcoin market. But then this yellow line here is when Bitcoin's dominance peaked. From then on, the altcoin market outperformed Bitcoin. Now, the other interesting thing that I found is that altcoins typically peak between 1 to 3 months after Bitcoin's price peaks. So you can see that Bitcoin's price peaked around April of 2021 when it hit $65,000, while altcoins prices peaked around the second week of May of 2021. So about a month difference. Now, yes, I know that Bitcoin actually peaked back in November of 2021 when it hit $69,000. But if you guys remember, that's when we got the FTX collapse, which collapsed the entire market. So when that news came out, not only did Bitcoin collapse, but so did the altcoins. So I'm not counting that part of it because of course that was an outlier event. So if we look back in 2016, 2017 bull run, we see something similar. Bitcoin's price peaked around early December, hitting $20,000, and altcoins prices peaked early January. So there seems to be about a month delay between the peak of Bitcoin and the peak of altcoins. And usually after the peak of Bitcoin is when you get the massive Altseason rally. So it's those last few 3, 4, 5 weeks after Bitcoin peaks that altcoins really make life-changing type of returns. So what can we take away from this data? One is that when Bitcoin's dominance peaks and it starts dropping, that's usually the best time to rotate your capital from Bitcoin into altcoins, because you know that for the rest of the cycle, altcoins are going to outperform Bitcoin at that point. Another thing is that the real Altseason is at the end of the bull market, at the end of the bull cycle, usually the final month of the bull cycle. So using historical data and what we've seen in the past from Bitcoin's 4-year halving cycles, Bitcoin typically peaks 18 months post halving. That would put its peak date sometime in 2025 in October, which would mean that the real Altseason, when altcoins peak, could be sometime in November of 2025. Now, the final question that I want to answer is how high can altcoins actually go this year, this time around, right? Although there's no way to really know the answer to that question, based on historical data, I could kind of give some predictions, just kind of using averages. We're gonna try to look at 3 different scenarios using Bitcoin's peak as kind of a baseline. So I think during this bull run, Bitcoin's price can peak anywhere between $150,000 to $250,000. So we can get a site like the Coin Perspective, put in a price, let's say $150,000 for Bitcoin, and that tells us that for Bitcoin to reach that price mark, it would have to hit $3 trillion market cap. We can do this again for 200. We would need a $4 trillion market cap, and 250, we would need a $4.9 trillion market cap for Bitcoin. All right, so I've been playing with the spreadsheets a little bit to give you guys some sort of prediction model based on some historical data from the previous bull runs and historical averages. So this is a chart that we're looking at, and the main things that we're gonna be looking at is focusing on here. This is where we're gonna have our assets. I basically got some of the top cryptos. Then we're gonna have this here, which is gonna be the market cap allocation, an estimate of circulating supply. And then this is where it gets kind of interesting, and this is where we're gonna be playing with it, because these 3 things here are gonna be our 3 different scenarios, right? The altcoin market cap if Bitcoin hits 150K, altcoin market cap if Bitcoin hits 200K, and altcoin market cap if Bitcoin hits 250K. We're going to make assumptions for the peak of the Altseason rally if these scenarios are the peaks for Bitcoin's price. So typically during the peak of the Altseason rally, the altcoin market cap's total share is usually around 60% and Bitcoin's is around 40%. So that's what we're going to be assuming in this breakdown. And then based off of all of that, we will then get a price for each scenario. Again, the prices are gonna depend on the market cap allocation. I got the allocation just by looking back at historical data, the last bull run and the one before that as well, and just kind of playing around with the numbers a little bit. First one we're gonna look at is Ethereum. It's typically around 50% of the altcoin market cap. Now, with a lot more altcoins, is it still gonna be 50%? I don't know, it might be a little bit lower, but either way, this is, I think, a good starting point here. So in scenario one, if Bitcoin's price were to peak at $150,000, our extremely bull case for Ethereum would be around $15,000 price. If Bitcoin's price went up to 200,000, then we're looking at about a $20,000 price for Ethereum. And if Bitcoin's price went to about 250K, we're looking at about $25,000 for Ethereum. Again, this is an extremely bullish case for Ethereum, where it has a market share in the altcoins of about 50%, where the price would be about 10% of Bitcoin's price, which did not happen last time. If you guys remember, Bitcoin's previous all-time high was about $69,000, and Ethereum's price reached an all-time high of $48.75. So that would actually be more around 7% of Bitcoin's peak price. So 7% of price would be more around this range here, which would put Ethereum's market cap allocation more around 35%. And I honestly like this a lot better. I think this feels a little bit more realistic. So now if Bitcoin goes up to $150,000, Ethereum's price would be more around $10,500. That could potentially be its peak. If we have the bull case of Bitcoin going up to 200K, Ethereum might peak around $14,000. And in the bull case of Bitcoin going up to 250K, Ethereum peak would be somewhere around $17,500. So XRP, I think, is the wild card here, because we didn't really get to see it at its full potential during the last bull run. During the last bull run, it peaked around $2. And that wasn't even when Bitcoin even hit its all-time high of 69,000. That's when it hit a high of 65,000. So again, it's tough to say what's gonna happen there, but here's just some predictions for fun. If we believe it's going to continue being the number 3 biggest crypto, number 2 biggest altcoin in the market throughout this bull run. So at 150K price, XRP could peak somewhere around 550. At 200K, we could be seeing somewhere around $7.38. And 250K for Bitcoin could mean somewhere between $9 to $10 for XRP. Taking a look at Solana, at 150K, it would be somewhere around $630. At 200K, potentially somewhere around $840. And at 250K, we could be talking about seeing Solana at $1,000. And that's pretty much more or less what I've been talking about myself when looking at these numbers. I've been talking about Solana potentially getting somewhere between $800 to $1,000. So I think that is definitely a realistic number there as well. Even for XRP, I've been talking about kind of this range as well. So I kind of agree with all of these so far. Next, we're looking at BNB. If Bitcoin peaks at 150K, it could be somewhere around $1,500. At 200K, we could be talking $2,000. And at 250K, we could be talking around $2,500. Each of these prices are about 1% of Bitcoin's price is what it looks like there. Looking at the last bull run, when Bitcoin hit the first initial peak at $65,000, we could see that BNB was around $680. So yeah, that's actually about around 1% of Bitcoin's price. So I think these could be somewhere in the ballpark of BNB's peak during this bull cycle. Next, we're looking at Doge. In scenario 1, its peak could be at $1.28. Scenario 2, it could peak at $1.70. And scenario 3, it could peak at about $2.13. So these are around 0.001% of Bitcoin's high price there. And looking back at the previous bull run, it kind of does fit more or less where it was during its highs here, based on the high that Bitcoin hit during this time period as well. So again, I kind of like these numbers here in these 3 scenarios. The most bullish case being around $2 for Doge during this bull cycle, and the most bearish case just above $1. I think that's definitely feels realistic. Next, let's take a look at Cardano ADA. Scenario 1, we're looking at $4. Scenario 2, we're looking at about $5.50, and scenario 3, about almost $7. Again, this feels pretty close to where it was as far as last bull run compared to Bitcoin's price, sitting between 0.002 and 0.004% of Bitcoin's price. Again, it does feel like realistic scenarios here. Next up, we have Chainlink. And with this one, I don't really know what to do with it. Right now, I have it sitting at about 3.5% of the altcoin market cap. But it feels like a lot when you're looking at the prices here. 240, 320, 400. That feels like a lot. I think it feels better putting Chainlink allocation right around 1.75%, and these numbers feel more realistic to me. Now we're talking about $120 in scenario 1, $160 in scenario 2, and $200 in scenario 3. I've been thinking that $100 to about $150, $160 is my range for Chainlink during this bull run. So I think this definitely fares well with that view. And an extreme bull case of $200, I think also feels attainable. Next up, let's look at AVAX. And this is another one that I don't really know what to do with. These numbers feel like a lot. I think I have to potentially drop this just like I did with Chainlink. Looking back at where the price was, it did hit almost $150 during the time that Bitcoin hit 69,000. which is right around a 0.2% of Bitcoin's price. 350 out of 150K would be right around there, 0.23% of Bitcoin's price. So it's actually might be right in line where it could potentially go, between $300 to $500 in these three scenarios. 350 in scenario 1, 466 scenario 2, and 583 scenario 3. So going through the numbers, this actually feels realistic. I think I'm gonna drop it to 0.03 overall here in the market cap allocation, and it gives me these whole numbers that I like a lot more. And I think I feel good about this. Between $300 to $500 is for the bull case for Avalanche during this bull run. Next up, let's look at Polkadot. This is another one that, again, I'm not too sure of, but this one feels maybe a little low. During the last bull run, it went up as high as $56. So to only pass it by a little bit, that's what I'm not sure of. But looking at prices right now, they're still only at basically $9. So that's pretty much almost a 10x from current prices. So yeah, I think this actually might be right, and this could be a pretty good range for Polkadot during this bull run, anywhere between $85 to maybe even $150 in the most bullish case. And then the last one we're gonna look at is Litecoin. Litecoin's always been like a weird one, but at the same time, it's always been around. So these three scenarios do seem pretty realistic. Scenario 1, 493, scenario 2, 657, and the final scenario over 800, pushing towards that $1,000 mark. During the last bull run, we topped out at 413. That was about 0.6% from Bitcoin's price. This current prediction puts it around 0.3%. So I think there is a possibility for this to be a little bit higher, maybe add another 0.5% there. But see, then these numbers get a little too crazy, I think. I think a top number in the most bullish case, $1,000. I think maybe that's the highest I could go if I'm being very, very, very optimistic. So I think somewhere between 500 and 800 is more realistic, with the most optimistic case, bull case, right, being $1,000. So now that you know exactly what the crypto money flow cycle is and how it works and how to use it to your advantage, you're almost ready for the next alt season. The only thing missing is knowing exactly which altcoins to buy. Because as you can see from my prediction model here, being in the right altcoins will be the difference between turning $1,000 into maybe $5,000 or turning it into 20, 50, maybe even $100,000 by the end of this bull run. But don't worry, I got you. I did a video where I went through the top 25 cryptos and ranked them based on which ones have the potential for the biggest returns during this bull run. So click the video on the screen right now, and I'll see you guys there.